The number 40 carries a weight that few other ages do. It's a threshold, a turning point, a moment when the ground beneath you seems to shift. For decades, you've been climbing a mountain, building a career, forming relationships, chasing goals. You followed the script society handed you. Go to school, get a job, find a partner, buy a house, save for retirement. But now, standing at the midpoint of your life, you can't shake the feeling that something is missing. The summit you've been striving for is within sight, but the air is thin and the view is not what you expected. The satisfaction you thought would come with achievement feels fleeting, if it comes at all. Why does this happen? Why does 40 feel like a reckoning, a moment when the rules of the game change? Why does it feel like real life? True life is only just beginning. Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, believed that 40 marks a profound turning point in the human psyche. He called it the afternoon of life, a time when the morning's ambitions and illusions begin to fade and the deeper, more essential questions of existence rise to the surface. But here's the paradox. While society tells us that youth is the pinnacle of life, the time to seize opportunities, build empires, and leave our mark, Jung argued that the second half of life is where the real work begins. Why, then, do so many of us feel lost at 40? Why does this age, which Jung saw as a gateway to deeper fulfillment, often feel like a crisis instead? Consider this. For the first half of your life, you've been climbing a mountain. You've been told that the summit is success, wealth, status, security. You've pushed yourself to the limit, sacrificing sleep, relationships, and even your own well-being to reach that peak. But now, standing at 40, you've arrived, or at least, you've come close enough to see the summit. And what do you find? The air is thin. The view is not what you expected. The satisfaction you thought would come with achievement is fleeting, if it comes at all. This is the great contradiction of modern life. We spend our youth chasing goals that society tells us will bring happiness, only to discover that those goals were never truly ours to begin with. By 40, the mask begins to slip. The roles we've played, the dutiful employee, the responsible parent, the reliable friend, start to feel like costumes we've outgrown. The question, "Who am I?" echoes louder than ever, but the answer is no longer clear. Jung called this the midlife crisis, but it's not a crisis in the traditional sense. It's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It's the psyche's way of demanding that we confront the parts of ourselves we've ignored, the dreams we've buried, and the truths we've avoided. It's a call to stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. But here's the catch. This awakening is not easy. It requires us to face the shadows we've spent a lifetime running from, the fears, regrets, and unfulfilled desires that lurk in the corners of our minds. It asks us to question everything we thought we knew about success, happiness, and identity. And it demands that we take responsibility for our own lives, even when the path ahead is uncertain. So what happens if we ignore this call? What happens if we push the questions aside, bury ourselves in distractions, and try to keep climbing the same mountain? The answer is both simple and terrifying. We risk living the rest of our lives as strangers to ourselves. But what if we listen? What if, at 40, we stop chasing the summit and start exploring the vast, uncharted terrain within us? What if real life doesn't begin until we have the courage to ask the hard questions and the strength to face the answers? This is the journey Carl Jung invites us to take. It's a journey into the depths of the self, where the true work of life begins. But before we can take the first step, we must understand why this moment, this age, this crisis, this awakening holds such profound significance. What is it about 40 that forces us to confront the essence of who we are? And why does the second half of life hold the key to a deeper, more authentic existence? The answers lie not in the external markers of success, but in the hidden forces that shape our inner world. To uncover them, we must first confront the invisible problem that keeps us trapped in the first half of life, a problem rooted in psychology, philosophy, and the very fabric of human nature. To understand why 40 feels like a threshold, a moment of reckoning, we must first confront the hidden problem that shapes the first half of life. This problem is not unique to any one person or culture. It is a universal force, deeply embedded in the human psyche. It is the problem of the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the world, the version of ourselves we present to others in order to survive, succeed, and belong. Carl Jung called the persona the adaptation layer of the psyche. It is the part of us that learns to fit into society, to meet expectations, and to play the roles assigned to us. In the first half of life, the persona is essential. It helps us build careers, form relationships, and establish our place in the world. But here's the catch: the persona is not who we truly are. It is a construct, a collection of habits, beliefs, and behaviors shaped by external forces, our parents, our culture, our education, our peers. Over time, the persona becomes so ingrained that we mistake it for our true self. We identify with our job titles, our social roles, and our achievements, believing that these external markers define us. But beneath the surface, something else is stirring. A deeper, more authentic self that has been silenced, ignored, or forgotten. This is the root of the midlife crisis. By 40, the persona begins to crack. The roles we've played no longer feel satisfying. The goals we've chased no longer bring meaning. The life we've built no longer feels like ours. And in the space between the persona and the true self, a question arises. Who am I, really? This question is not new. It has haunted philosophers, poets, and thinkers for centuries. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of the death of God and the collapse of traditional values, urging individuals to create their own meaning in a world without inherent purpose. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that existence precedes essence, that we are not born with a predetermined identity, but must define ourselves through our choices and actions. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote that the search for meaning is the primary drive of human life, even in the face of suffering. But Jung took this idea further. He believed that the journey to self-discovery is not just a philosophical pursuit, but a psychological necessity. He called it individuation, the process of integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche to become a whole, authentic individual. And he believed that this process begins in earnest at midlife, when the persona starts to crumble and the true self demands to be heard. Why does this happen at 40? The answer lies in the natural rhythm of human development. In the first half of life, our energy is directed outward, toward building, achieving, and proving ourselves. We are driven by ambition, competition, and the desire for recognition. But as we approach midlife, our priorities shift. The external world no longer holds the same allure. We begin to turn inward, seeking deeper meaning and connection. This shift is not arbitrary. It is rooted in biology, psychology, and even spirituality. Neurologically, the brain undergoes changes in midlife that affect how we process emotions, prioritize goals, and perceive time. Psychologically, we become more aware of our mortality, which forces us to confront the finite nature of our existence. Spiritually, we begin to question the purpose of our lives and the legacy we want to leave behind. But here's the problem. Society does not prepare us for this shift. We are taught to value youth, productivity, and external success, but we are rarely taught how to navigate the inner landscape of midlife. As a result, many of us feel lost, stuck, or disillusioned when we reach this stage. We try to cling to the persona, to keep climbing the same mountain, even when it no longer brings us joy. This is the hidden force that shapes the first half of life, the pressure to conform, to achieve, and to prove our worth. It is a force that keeps us trapped in the persona, disconnected from our true selves. And it is a force that must be confronted if we are to move into the second half of life with clarity, purpose, and authenticity. But how do we confront it? How do we break free from the persona and begin the journey to self-discovery? The answer lies in understanding the consequences of ignoring this call, consequences that are not just personal, but societal. What happens when an entire generation reaches midlife without confronting the deeper questions of existence? What happens when we prioritize external success over inner fulfillment, productivity over meaning, and conformity over authenticity? The consequences are all around us, in the rise of burnout, depression, and existential despair, in the erosion of community, connection, and purpose, in the growing sense of alienation and disconnection that defines modern life. But there is another way, a way that begins with a radical shift in perspective, a rebellion against the forces that keep us trapped in the first half of life, a way that leads not to crisis, but to awakening. This is the path Carl Jung invites us to take. It is a path that requires courage, curiosity, and a willingness to confront the unknown. But it is also a path that leads to the most profound discovery of all, the discovery of who we truly are. And so, the question remains, are you ready to take the first step? The journey begins not with answers, but with questions. Questions that will challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself, your life, and your place in the world. What lies beneath the persona? What shadows have you been running from? And what would it mean to live a life that is truly your own? These are the questions that will guide us as we move into the next stage of this exploration, a stage where we confront the unseen consequences of ignoring the call to self-discovery and begin to glimpse the possibility of a different way of being. The path ahead is not easy, but it is necessary, for it is only by confronting the hidden problem that we can begin to break free and step into the second half of life with clarity, purpose, and authenticity. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, uncharted forest. You've spent years building a path through the trees, following the maps others gave you. But now, as you approach the midpoint of your journey, you realize something unsettling. The path no longer leads where you want to go. The markers you've relied on, success, status, security, feel hollow. The forest around you is dense, shadowed, and alive with whispers of what lies beyond the well-trodden trail. This is the moment of reckoning. The moment when the unseen consequences of ignoring your true self begin to surface. Carl Jung warned that failing to confront the deeper questions of midlife comes at a cost, not just to the individual, but to society as a whole. When we cling to the persona, when we refuse to integrate the shadows of our psyche, we create a life that is fragmented, superficial, and ultimately unsustainable. The consequences of this fragmentation are both personal and collective, rippling outward to shape our relationships, our communities, and our world. On a personal level, the refusal to confront the true self leads to what Jung called psychic stagnation. This is a state of inner paralysis where the energy of the psyche becomes trapped in old patterns, unable to flow freely into new growth. Psychic stagnation manifests in many ways: a sense of emptiness or boredom, a feeling of being stuck or trapped, a loss of passion or purpose. It is the quiet despair of living a life that feels like someone else, but the consequences go deeper than mere dissatisfaction. When we ignore the call to self-discovery, we also deny ourselves the opportunity to heal the wounds of the past. Jung believed that the psyche is a self-regulating system, constantly seeking balance and wholeness. The shadows we refuse to confront, the fears, regrets, and unfulfilled desires, do not simply disappear. They linger in the unconscious, influencing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in ways we may not even realize. For example, consider the person who spends their life chasing external validation, approval from their parents, recognition from their peers, admiration from society. On the surface, they may appear successful, even enviable, But beneath the surface, they are haunted by a deep sense of inadequacy, a fear that they are not enough. This fear drives them to work harder, achieve more, and push themselves to the brink of burnout, but no amount of external success can fill the void within. This is the paradox of the persona. The more we identify with it, the more disconnected we become from our true selves. And the more disconnected we become, the more we suffer, not just emotionally, but physically, mentally, and spiritually. The consequences of this disconnection extend beyond the individual. When an entire generation reaches midlife without confronting the deeper questions of existence, the effects ripple outward, shaping the culture in profound and often destructive ways. Take, for example, the rise of consumerism. In a society that values external success over inner fulfillment, material possessions become a substitute for meaning. We buy things not because we need them, but because we hope they will fill the void within. But no amount of stuff can satisfy the longing for connection, purpose, and authenticity. Or consider the epidemic of burnout and mental health issues that plagues modern society. When we prioritize productivity over well-being, when we measure our worth by our output rather than our humanity, we create a culture of exhaustion and despair. We push ourselves to the limit, sacrificing our health, our relationships, and our joy in the pursuit of goals that no longer bring us meaning. And then there is the erosion of community and connection. When we live in authentic lives, when we hide behind masks and rules, we create barriers between ourselves and others. We become isolated, disconnected, and lonely, even in a world that is more connected than ever. These are the unseen consequences of ignoring the call to self-discovery. They are the silent forces that shape our lives, our relationships, and our world. And they are the forces that must be confronted if we are to break free from the cycle of fragmentation and despair. But how do we confront them? How do we move beyond the persona and begin the journey to wholeness? The answer lies in a radical shift in perspective, a rebellion against the forces that keep us trapped in the first half of life. It requires us to question everything we thought we knew about success, happiness, and identity. It demands that we confront the shadows we've been running from and reclaim the parts of ourselves we've ignored or denied. This is not an easy task. It requires courage, curiosity, and a willingness to face the unknown. But it is also a task that holds the promise of profound transformation, not just for the individual, but for society as a whole. Imagine a world where people live authentic, meaningful lives. A world where individuals are connected to their true selves and to each other. A world where success is measured not by external achievements, but by inner fulfillment. This is the world Carl Jung envisioned. A world where the second half of life is not a crisis, but an awakening. But to create this world, we must first confront the unseen consequences of ignoring the call to self-discovery. We must recognize the ways in which the persona has shaped our lives and begin the work of breaking free. The journey ahead is not easy, but it is necessary, for it is only by confronting the shadows that we can step into the light and begin to live the life we were meant to live. The next stage of this exploration will take us deeper into the process of breaking free, into the rebellion against the forces that keep us trapped, and into the radical shift in perspective that makes true transformation possible. The forest is vast, and the path is uncharted, but the journey is worth it. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping around you, the ground beneath your feet crumbling. Behind you is the life you've built, the roles you've played, the masks you've worn, the path you've followed. Ahead of you is the unknown, a vast, uncharted expanse of possibility. You know you can't go back. The persona, the life you've lived, no longer fits, but stepping forward feels like stepping into the void. This is the moment of rebellion, the moment when you must choose, cling to the familiar or leap into the unknown. Carl Jung believed that breaking free from the persona requires a radical act of rebellion. A rebellion not against others, but against the forces within us that keep us trapped. It is a rebellion against the habits, beliefs, and patterns that have shaped our lives, and a commitment to discovering who we truly are. But how do we rebel? How do we rebel? How do we break free from the persona and begin the journey to wholeness? The first step is to confront the shadows. Jung called the shadow the dark side of the psyche, the parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or ignore. These may be traits we consider negative: anger, jealousy, fear, or they may be aspects of ourselves we've been taught to suppress: creativity, vulnerability, passion. Whatever form they take, the shadows hold the key to our liberation. Confronting the shadows is not easy. It requires us to face the parts of ourselves we've been running from, to acknowledge the wounds we've been hiding, and to take responsibility for the ways in which we've limited ourselves. But it is also a profoundly transformative process. By integrating the shadows, we reclaim the energy and vitality that have been trapped in the unconscious, and we begin to move toward wholeness. One way to confront the shadows is through self-reflection. This might involve journaling, meditation, or therapy, practices that allow us to explore the inner landscape of the psyche and bring the unconscious into the light. It might also involve seeking out feedback from others, friends, family, or mentors who can help us see the blind spots we've been avoiding. But confronting the shadows is only the beginning. To truly break free from the persona, we must also question the beliefs and values that have shaped our lives. Consider, for example, the belief that success is measured by external achievements, wealth, status, power. This belief is deeply ingrained in our culture, but it is not inherently true. It is a story we've been told, a narrative we've internalized, and like all stories, it can be rewritten. To rebel against this belief, we must ask ourselves, what does success mean to me? What brings me joy, fulfillment, and meaning? What kind of life do I want to live? These questions are not easy to answer. They require us to dig deep, to challenge the assumptions we've taken for granted, and to listen to the whispers of our true selves. But they are also the questions that lead to liberation. Another way to rebel is to embrace the unknown. The persona thrives on certainty, on control, on the illusion that we can predict and plan our lives. But the true self is wild, unpredictable, and free. To connect with the true self, we must learn to let go of the need for control and embrace the uncertainty of life. This might involve taking risks, quitting a job that no longer fulfills us, ending a relationship that no longer serves us, or pursuing a passion we've been ignoring. It might also involve cultivating a sense of curiosity and openness, a willingness to explore new possibilities and embrace new experiences. But perhaps the most radical act of rebellion is to simply be ourselves. In a world that values conformity, authenticity is a revolutionary act. It is a declaration that we will no longer live by someone else's rules, that we will no longer wear masks to please others, that we will no longer deny our true selves. Being ourselves means embracing our imperfections, our vulnerabilities, our quirks. It means honoring our desires, our passions, our dreams. It means living from the inside out, rather than the outside in. This is not an easy task. It requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to face the judgments and criticisms of others. But it is also the task that leads to true freedom. As we rebel against the persona, we begin to reclaim the parts of ourselves we've lost or forgotten. We reconnect with our creativity, our intuition, our sense of wonder. We rediscover the joy of living, the beauty of being alive. But the rebellion does not end with the individual. It extends outward, shaping our relationships, our communities, and our world. Imagine a world where people live authentic, meaningful lives. A world where individuals are connected to their true selves and to each other. A world where success is measured not by external achievements, but by inner fulfillment. This is the world Carl Jung envisioned, a world where the second half of life is not a crisis, but an awakening. But to create this world, we must first rebel against the forces that keep us trapped in the first half of life. We must confront the shadows, question the beliefs, and embrace the unknown. We must dare to be ourselves, even when it feels like stepping into the void. The journey ahead is not easy, but it is necessary. For it is only by rebelling against the persona that we can step into the light and begin to live the life we were meant to live. The final stage of this exploration will take us deeper into the ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization that redefines how we see ourselves, our lives, and our world. Imagine this. You've spent months, perhaps years, in the wilderness of self-discovery. You've confronted your shadows, questioned your beliefs, and rebelled against the persona. You've faced the void and stepped into the unknown. And now, as you stand on the other side, you feel something shift. A deep, resonant clarity that redefines everything you thought you knew about yourself, your life, and your place in the world. This is the ultimate truth. Real life begins when you stop living for others and start living for yourself. Carl Jung believed that the second half of life is not about achieving more, but about becoming more. It is about shedding the layers of the persona and stepping into the fullness of who you are. It is about reclaiming your authenticity, your creativity, and your sense of purpose. And it is about realizing that the true measure of a life well lived is not external success, but inner fulfillment. But this realization is not just a personal epiphany, it is a radical redefinition of what it means to be human. The ultimate truth is this: you are not your job, your relationships, or your achievements. You are not the roles you play or the masks you wear. You are not the expectations of others or the judgments of society. You are not even the thoughts in your mind or the emotions in your heart. You are something deeper, something more essential. You are the awareness behind the thoughts, the presence beneath the emotions, the consciousness that observes and experiences life. You are the true self, the eternal, unchanging essence that exists beyond the persona, beyond the ego, beyond the constructs of time and space. This realization is both liberating and humbling. It liberates you from the need to prove your worth, to chase external validation, to live up to the expectations of others. It humbles you by reminding you that you are part of something greater, a vast, interconnected web of life that transcends the boundaries of the self. But how do you live from this place of truth? How do you embody the true self in a world that values the persona? The answer lies in alignment, aligning your thoughts, actions, and choices with the essence of who you are. It means living with integrity, authenticity, and purpose. It means honoring your values, following your passions, and trusting your intuition. It means being present, mindful, and fully engaged in the moment. Living from the true self also means embracing the paradoxes of life. It means holding the tension between light and shadow, between freedom and responsibility, between individuality and connection. It means accepting that life is not a linear path, but a spiral, a journey of growth, transformation, and return. Consider, for example, the paradox of aging. Society tells us that youth is the pinnacle of life, that aging is a decline, a loss, a fading away. But the ultimate truth reveals a different story. Aging is not a decline, it is an evolution. It is an opportunity to shed the superficial and embrace the essential, to let go of the external and connect with the internal, to move from doing to being. This is the gift of the second half of life, the opportunity to live from the true self, to embody the essence of who you are, and to contribute your unique gifts to the world. But the ultimate truth is not just a personal revelation, it is a collective awakening. When individuals live from the true self, they create ripples that extend outward, shaping the culture in profound and transformative ways. Imagine a world where people live authentic, meaningful lives, a world where individuals are connected to their true selves and to each other. A world where success is measured not by external achievements, but by inner fulfillment. This is the world Carl Jung envisioned. A world where the second half of life is not a crisis, but an awakening. But to create this world, we must first awaken to the ultimate truth. We must realize that real life begins when we stop living for others and start living for ourselves. We must reclaim our authenticity, our creativity, and our sense of purpose. And we must embody the true self in every thought, action, and choice. The journey to the ultimate truth is not easy. It requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to face the unknown. But it is also the most rewarding journey we can undertake. As you stand on the other side of the wilderness, as you feel the shift within you, remember this: you are not alone. You are part of a vast, interconnected web of life, a tapestry of souls on the same journey of awakening. And as you step into the fullness of who you are, you contribute to the collective awakening of humanity. This is the final, most powerful realization. Real life begins at 40, not because of the number, but because of the awakening it represents. It is the moment when you stop climbing the mountain and start exploring the vast, uncharted terrain within you. It is the moment when you stop living for others and start living for yourself. It is the moment when you step into the light and begin to live the life you were meant to live.